There is a particular kind of anxiety that doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't shout. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't demand attention. It whispers. It appears in small moments. When someone takes a little longer to reply. When a new person enters the room. When laughter feels slightly louder between them and someone else. And suddenly, without warning, your chest tightens. Not because anything has happened, but because something could. You don't just fear losing someone. You fear being replaced. Not abandoned in chaos. Not rejected dramatically, but quietly substituted. As if one day, they will simply realize there is someone better. More interesting. More stable. More attractive. Less complicated. And you will fade into the background. If you know this feeling, you know how exhausting it is. To constantly measure yourself against invisible competitors. To wonder if your place is secure. Or temporary. And no matter how many reassurances you receive, the fear lingers. Because this fear is not about logic. It is about memory. And memory runs deeper than words. People who constantly fear being replaced often appear attentive. They listen closely. They notice changes quickly. They are sensitive to subtle shifts in tone and energy. They often scan for signs. Without realizing it, they monitor the environment for potential threats. A new coworker who seems impressive. A friend who suddenly feels closer to someone else. A partner mentioning someone admirable. You may notice that they overthink small details. If someone says, they're really talented, it echoes. If a text feels slightly shorter than usual, it lingers. They often compare themselves silently. They imagine scenarios that haven't happened. They rehearse conversations in their mind. They probably like them more. They are more fun than me. They wouldn't choose me if they had better options. They may not voice these fears openly. Instead, they adapt. They try harder. They become more agreeable, more accommodating, more impressive. Or they do the opposite. They withdraw first. They distance themselves before they can be replaced. They tell themselves they don't care. But underneath detachment is protection. Because if they leave first, they cannot be exchanged. They may struggle to fully relax in relationships. Even during calm moments, there is a quiet vigilance. A sense that security is temporary. They might need subtle reassurance. Not constant declarations. Just small confirmations that they are still chosen. But even when reassurance is given, it may not fully settle. Because the fear is not always about the present person. It is about something older. This pattern rarely begins in adulthood. It often forms in environments where attention felt unstable. Children are highly sensitive to emotional shifts. If a caregiver is warm one day and distant the next, the child learns unpredictability. If praise is given conditionally, the child learns performance equals love. If comparison is frequent, the child learns ranking. Why can't you be more like them? Look how well they're doing. These phrases may seem small, but repeated over time, they create a framework. A belief that value is relative. That love is competitive. That attention can move elsewhere at any moment. In some homes, affection felt scarce. Siblings competed for validation. Parents were overwhelmed. Stress was constant. The child learned to monitor availability, to notice who was receiving more attention, to adjust behavior accordingly. If attention shifted away from them, it did not feel neutral. It felt like loss. Even subtle emotional withdrawal can leave an imprint. If a parent became distant when the child expressed strong emotions, the child may have concluded, if I am too much, I will be replaced. Over time, the nervous system associates closeness with instability. It learns that connection must be secured, protected, maintained through effort. The child who once feared losing attention becomes the adult who fears losing their place. And the fear becomes internalized, not as a memory of specific events, but as an expectation. An expectation that someone better will eventually appear. In adulthood, this expectation shapes behavior quietly. In romantic relationships, They may struggle with comparison. If their partner admires someone, it feels personal. Not because admiration is betrayal, but because it triggers ranking. They may overcompensate, trying to be more attractive, more supportive, more easygoing. Or they may suppress needs, afraid that expressing dissatisfaction makes them easier to replace. Conflict feels risky. Asking for reassurance feels dangerous. Because what if the reassurance isn't convincing enough? In friendships, similar patterns appear. If a close friend grows closer to someone new, it may stir anxiety. They may question their importance, wonder if they are becoming secondary. At work, this fear can transform into overperformance. They may work harder than necessary, volunteer constantly, struggle to delegate, because being indispensable feels safer than being average. They may feel threatened by talented colleagues, not openly competitive, but internally unsettled, as if someone's success could quietly erase their relevance. This creates exhaustion. Constant vigilance requires energy. Constant comparison drains self-worth. And yet, the cycle continues. Because the fear feels protective. If they stay alert, they believe they can prevent replacement. There is also a deep inner contradiction. Externally, they may appear confident, capable, social, even admired. But internally, they often feel fragile. They may downplay compliments, assume praise is temporary, dismiss achievements as luck. They curate themselves carefully, presenting strengths, hiding insecurities, trying to maintain their position. They crave closeness, but struggle to trust it. They want to feel chosen, but fear that choice is conditional. You might recognize this tension in yourself. The way you tense when someone impressive enters the room. The way you scroll through social media and compare yourself instantly. The way you imagine scenarios where someone else is preferred and then feel ashamed for thinking that way. The fear feels irrational, but it doesn't feel random. Because it isn't. It is rooted in earlier experiences, where attention shifted, where connection felt fragile, where being compared hurt more than it should have. Even adult experiences can reinforce it. A breakup where someone moved on quickly, a friendship that faded when a new person arrived. Moments like these confirm old beliefs. They found someone better. And the narrative deepens. Over time, constantly fearing replacement erodes identity. If worth is always relative, self-concept becomes unstable. You begin to measure yourself against everyone. Appearance, intelligence, charisma, emotional stability. There is always someone who excels in one category. And if value is comparative, peace becomes impossible. Because someone better will always exist in some way. But connection is not built on universal superiority. It is built on resonance, shared experience, emotional safety, mutual recognition. These qualities cannot be ranked objectively. Yet the fear persists. Because the nervous system is not evaluating logic. It is scanning for survival. The turning point is not dramatic. It is subtle. It begins with awareness. With noticing when the fear appears. Not fighting it. Not judging it. Simply recognizing. This is old. The situation may be new, but the reaction is familiar. When you see that the fear is a learned response, it shifts slightly. It loses some authority. You begin to separate present reality from past expectation. Being replaced is not inevitable. It is not your default fate. You are not a temporary placeholder, waiting to be upgraded. You are not in constant competition with every person who crosses their path. Your presence is not interchangeable, because no one else carries your exact history, your exact tone of voice, your exact way of seeing the world. Comparison simplifies identity, but identity is complex, and connection is personal. When you begin to understand this, the vigilance softens. You may still feel moments of insecurity. That is human. But they no longer define your worth. They become signals, reminders of where you once felt unstable. not predictions of what must happen. You were never meant to win connection by outperforming everyone else. You were meant to participate in it as yourself. The fear of being replaced may have once protected you. It kept you alert, adaptable, responsive. But you are no longer the child who had to compete for attention. You are not trapped in that environment anymore. And slowly, gently, security becomes possible. Not because no one else exists, but because you begin to see that being chosen is not about being the best. It is about being real. And real cannot be replaced so easily. The fear may still whisper sometimes, but now you recognize its voice. It is not prophecy. It is memory. And memory does not have to control the present. You are not an option waiting to be exchanged. You are not a temporary role. You are a presence. And presence, when authentic, is not something that can simply be substituted. And perhaps the quietest healing begins when you stop competing for a place that was already yours.